Hi everybody, I am Brian Mullins the Fox. Welcome to Australian Christmas Dinner Numbers by the Decade 2001 to 2023. This series will be a bit complex. We'll try to get average Australian Christmas dinner prices in another Numbers by the Decade series in 2025 or something like that, so I don't overwhelm you. We'll be mainly focused on the dinner parts, aka centerpiece meats, and that's it. We're not also talking about the sides, we're mainly talking about the centerpiece. So let's start with 2001, the first year of not just the 2000s, but the first year of the third millennium as well. What are the typical Christmas dinner centerpiece meat options in Australia? According to an AI overview, here they are: ham, turkey, prawns, oysters, roast chicken, lamb, and beef. Under ham it reads, a traditional Australian dish that's cooked and served in many ways. Australians often prepare ham a few days before Christmas and serve it cold, sliced, and used to make sandwiches. And first of all, I thought they usually have Christmas dinner in January. I may or may not be wrong here, but if I'm wrong, sorry about that. Under turkey it reads, a classic Christmas meat, but Australians may serve cold turkey instead of a hot roast dinner because Christmas falls at the beginning of summer because Australia is in the Southern Hemisphere. Under prawns it reads, a popular Christmas food in Australia, often served pre-cooked and peeled. And under oysters, it reads, a seafood snack that's becoming more popular for Christmas. And it reads underneath, other traditional Christmas foods in Australia, including roast chicken, lamb, and beef. For this series, we'll go from 2001 to 2023 for each separate centerpiece meat item, so this series will comprise of 15 episodes. Episodes 1 to 3 will cover ham, 4 to 6 will cover prawns and oysters all at once, 7 to 9 will cover turkey, 10 to 12 will cover beef and lamb at the same time, and episodes 13 to 15 in December of this year will cover roast chicken, the least popular in Australia. So, as I said earlier, let's start off with ham. Before we get into cracking those numbers down, let's properly define the methodology. We will use the Australian population for each respective year, take into consideration the number of animals slaughtered for said meat in every December of each year, use averages like the average weight of a roast ham in Australia, so that then and only then, we would get our ballpark estimates for such time period. For the average weight of a ham in pounds, we'll figure out the average weight of a roast ham, then use the population to determine how many Australians were served for each singular centerpiece meat choice, how many hams were consumed and wasted. The same goes for every other choice I will cover later down the line in the series. So to sum it up shortly, number 1, Australian population for respective year divided by the average weight of a roast ham in Australia, which is 8.8 pounds, or also 4 kilograms. That's the median number, which we'll get to establishing in a little bit. And finally, number 2, the number of hams consumed compared to how many were slaughtered in the month of December for each year, to determine what I call the ham consumption ratio. The average size of an Australian Christmas dinner gathering is about 7 people when it comes to ham. I don't know what the average size of an Australian Christmas dinner gathering really is until we account for all centerpiece meats, and then we all get the average. It might as well be 10, accounting for all of them all at once for every year and decade. So with that out of the way, let's get to breaking those numbers down, shall we? According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, in December of 2001, 1,313,400 pigs were slaughtered. This is what a metric ton is when it comes to measurements in Australia, which equals to 97,059 metric tons, or 213,976,271.4 pounds of pork slaughtered and produced in the entirety of the month of December of 2001. The Australian population in 2001 clocked in at 19,248,143. Now again, the average weight of an Australian roast ham is 8.8 pounds. The average serving amount per Australian in weight, 225 grams, 3.48 pounds for 7 people on average, comprising of only 1 serving for each person. The number of Australians served Christmas dinner for Christmas of 2001, 2,749,735 of them. crunching those numbers down, we get the fact that in individual units, 392,819 of them were consumed by Australians. So, 392,819 hams in comparison to 1,313,400 pigs slaughtered? We'll get to ham consumption ratio now. When it comes to roasts, a pig can only have 2 hind legs, while overall they normally have 4 legs. So, in short summary, the ham to waste ratio is solely based on the fact that 1 ham roast or pork leg roast can only come from one side or one of the 2 hind legs on the pig. So, this also demonstrates both the number of hams consumed, bought, and produced, but were left to waste anyway without having been bought at the same time. So, number of pigs slaughtered divided by 2 equals the max number of hams for each year in Australia when it comes to Christmas dinner, centerpiece meat options. So, the ham consumption ratio for the Christmas of 2001, 392,819 of them out of 656,700 of them, or the ham consumption ratio of 59.8. Meaning that only 263,881 of them were wasted. Now, you understand how the methodology works and how it's put into practice. Now let's just make things easier for you all. Let's head on into 2002. The number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year was 1,381,700 of them. The number of Australians served ham as the centerpiece of their Christmas dinner? 2,749,735. The number of hams consumed, 312,470. And the ham consumption ratio, 312,470 out of 690,850 of them, or 45.3%. Heading into 2003, the number of pigs slaughtered in the month of December of that year, 1,376,900 of them. The number of Australians served, 2,814,143. And the number of hams consumed, 319,789, meaning that the ham consumption ratio, or 319,789 out of 688,450 of them, equals 46.5%. Heading into 2004, where the number of pigs slaughtered in the month of December of that year was 1,303,700. The number of Australians that were served this as the centerpiece meat option was 2,846,437. And the number of hams consumed for the Christmas of 2004 in Australia, 323,459. And the ham consumption ratio, or 323,459 out of 651,850 of them, is and was 49.6%. Now heading into the Christmas of 2005, in the month of December of that year, 1,322,300 pigs were slaughtered. The number of Australians served ham as the centerpiece of their Christmas dinner, 2,881,676. And the number of hams that were consumed by Australians for the Christmas of that year was 327,463, meaning that the ham consumption ratio, which is 327,463 out of 661,150, is 49.5%. Heading into 2006, the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year was 1,314,200 of them. The number of Australians served this meat option as the centerpiece was 2,923,861, and the number of hams consumed for the Christmas of that year in Australia was 332,257, meaning that the ham consumption ratio, which comprises of 332,257 out of 657,100, means that it's 50.6%. The first year to surpass the 50% mark and the majority since 2001. Heading into the Christmas of 2007, the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year was 1,322,800 of them. The number of Australians served ham as the centerpiece of their Christmas dinners was 2,975,833, meaning that the number of hams they consumed chalked up to 338,163, meaning that the ham consumption ratio, which comprises of 338,163 out of the 661,400 of them, is 51.2%. Heading into 2008, where the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year, 1,141,500 of them. The number of Australians served ham as the centerpiece for their Christmas dinners chalks up to 3,035,410 Australians, and the number of hams consumed by said Australians only amounts to 344,933 of them, meaning that the ham consumption ratio, which comprises of 344,933 out of 570,750 of them, is 60.4%. Heading into 2009, where the number of pigs slaughtered in December of that year in Australia was 1,162,300. The number of Australians served ham as their centerpiece of Christmas dinner is 3,094,413 of them, meaning that the number of hams they consumed amounted to only 351,638 of them, meaning that the ham consumption ratio, which comprises of 351,638 out of 581,150 of them, is 60.5%. And finally, we head into 2010, where the number of pigs in total that were slaughtered in December of that year amounts to 1,151,600 of them, and the number of Australians that were served ham as the centerpiece for their Christmas dinners amounts to 3,145,595 of them, meaning that the number of hams that were consumed amounted to 357,454, meaning that the ham consumption ratio for the Christmas of 2010 in Australia, that comprises of only 357,454 out of 575,800 of them, is 62.1%. So now, the reason why I only mentioned the ham waste statistic for 2001 earlier on was to demonstrate to you all how the methodology works and how it's put into practice. Now let's get to every single year when it comes to ham waste. 2001, 263,881 of them. 2002, 378,380 of them. 2003, 368,661 of them. 2004, 328,391 of them. 2005, 333,687 of them. 2006, 324,843 of them. 2007, 323,237 of them. 2008, 225,817 of them. 2009, 229,512 of them. And for 2010, 218,346 of them. Now let's get to the consumption waste ratio for each year in this decade and the average consumption waste ratio for ham when it comes to Christmas dinner in Australia. 2001, 59.8% to 40.2%. 2002, 45.3% to 54.7%. 2003, 46.5% to 53.5%. 2004, 49.6% to 50.4%. 2005, 49.5% to 50.5%. 2006, 50.6% to 49.4%. 2007, 51.2% to 48.8%. 2008, 60.4% to 39.6%. 2009, 60.5% to 39.5%. And for 2010, 62.1% to 37.9%. Meaning that the average consumption waste ratio when it comes to Christmas dinner ham in Australia is 53.5% to 46.5%. Thank you all so much for watching the first episode of Australian Christmas Dinner Numbers by the Decade 2001 to 2023. Tune in next time where I cover the 2010s, 2011 to 2020. I am Brian Mullins the Fox, signing out. See you then.